I never imagined my life would change when a lonely rancher offered me bread at my lowest moment. It was a chilly afternoon, the clouds hung heavy, and I could feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. I remember standing there, trembling in that roadside diner. My stomach churned with hunger, but the pain in my heart was 1,000 times worse. I was at rock bottom, staring into the abyss of loneliness. The door swung open. A gust of wind blew in, bringing with it a glimmer of warmth. He stepped inside this rugged rancher, with sun-kissed skin and a face like crumpled leather. His eyes held secrets of old storms and whispered promises. My breath caught. I'd never seen anyone who looked so world-weary yet fiercely alive. He caught my gaze, and something in the silence shattered. He nodded slightly, like we shared a hidden understanding, the kind that ties souls together. It was strange. I didn't know him, yet I felt pulled toward him. My heart raced, a wild rhythm. The waitress bustled by, her hands full, and the smell of hot coffee mixed with the sweet scent of freshly baked bread wafted through the air. That's when he approached me. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You look like you could use this." He offered me a piece of bread, golden crust against the dimness of the diner. I hesitated. Here I was, a mess of a person, wondering how something as simple as bread could feel like a lifeline that I took it. My fingers brushed against his, and a spark shot through me. In that moment, I could have sworn there was magic in the air. It felt like time stood still. I'd never tasted anything so comforting, so full of life. Somehow, the pain began to ease, if only slightly. As I chewed, my eyes flickered across the diner. I noticed others staring eyes wide, jaws dropped in disbelief. Why were they so invested in our moment? The rancher leaned in closer, and I caught a faint scent of horses and wildflowers. I suddenly felt exposed, as if the weight of my troubles had been splashed across the walls for everyone to see. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. His concern wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I wanted to scream yes, but the truth felt like a stone in my throat. How could I tell him? I had lost everything: my job, my family. I was adrift in a sea of despair, but then came the unexpected. The ground shook slightly beneath us. A loud crash echoed from outside. The few patrons jumped in their seats. We exchanged quick glances. The rancher's calm face was now serious. I felt fear settle deep in my bones. What was happening? My heart raced again, this time with dread. That we rushed outside. Chaos reigned. I couldn't comprehend it. A car had flipped over, metal crumpled like paper, glass shattered like dreams. My breath quickened. I was frozen in shock. People rushed around, frantic, yelling, and I felt more lost than ever. The rancher stood beside me, his face a mask of determination. "We need to help," he said, but before I could respond, he dashed toward the wreck. I was torn between panic and an impulse to follow. My heart thudded in my chest. Why was this suddenly my reality? And then, just as suddenly, I realized the bread was still clutched tightly in my hand, my only connection to this man, this moment. What did it all mean? I would never forget the way my life changed with a simple act of kindness. But what was about to unfold? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scene outside the diner unfolded like a dark tapestry, woven with flashes of chaos and fear, and I stood there, my feet rooted to the ground. The rancher had become a figure of purpose amidst the turmoil, darting toward the wreckage while I remained stuck, paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of it all. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, each note sending tremors of anxiety through my chest that I could hardly process the horror as he climbed onto the upturned vehicle, his form steady and decisive. "Hey! Can you hear me?" he shouted, his voice breaking through the frenzy. It struck me how different he seemed in this moment, no longer just a lonely rancher, but a protector, someone willing to risk his safety for the sake of strangers. As I stood frozen, a wave of guilt washed over me. I held the bread tightly, as if it were a fragile treasure I couldn't bear to lose. It was a reminder of the warmth I had tasted only moments before, yet it felt so insignificant juxtaposed against the devastation that sprawled before us. Someone suddenly grabbed my elbow, jolting me from my stupor. It was the waitress, with wild eyes filled with concern. "Get inside. We need to clear the area," she urged, her voice urgent that I wanted to argue, to protest that I should be there, helping, but something deep inside told me I was of no use. My legs felt leaden as I stepped backward, eyes staying glued to the rancher. He was shouting now, directing others who had gathered, coaxing calm into the chaos. I stumbled into the diner, leaving a part of me outside with himmy heart still racing with a primal fear that clawed at me. The waitress hurried after me, looking around frantically. "Do you know if anyone is trapped inside?" she called out, struggling to contain her own rising panic. Through the glass window, I saw the rancher lean over the wrecked car, his body tense and alert. "Everyone needs to stay back," he shouted, glancing toward the diner with intensity. And in that moment, I felt tethered to him. The air was thick with fear, and for the first time in a long time, I understood the power of human connection, the way it could ignite courage or amplify despair. Then the ground rumbled again, this time with a deeper resonance. A muffled cry came from inside the vehicle. The voice was faint but laced with pain. That sound ripped through me like a jagged knife. My nerves ignited, and suddenly, the silence within the diner felt unbearable. Inexplicably drawn to the chaos, I moved toward the door, but the waitress caught my arm. "You can't go out there. We need to stay safe, someone's hurt," I whispered, more to myself than her. My heart raced, each beat resonating with urgency. "They need help," but before I could wrestle free from her grasp, another voice cut through the air, this one unfamiliar and stronger than I expected. "I've got this. Just help me." It was the rancher again, his tone steady, but it carried an undercurrent of fear that forced my heart to quicken. Reason dissolved in the heat of the moment. I broke loose, racing towards the door despite the waitress' cries. Adrenaline surged through my body, propelling me forward into the glaring cold, leaving behind the dimness of my own despair for something much larger than myself. As I crossed the threshold, I found myself standing next to the rancher, looking at the twisted metal that once was a car. A family huddled in shock on the ground, one mother, two young girls, tears streaming down their faces, yet all eyes were glued to the wreck. That he met my gaze, eyes fierce yet gentle, as if he was both daring me to back down and inviting me closer. "We need everyone to help," he said, his voice wrapped in determination. "If you can, start checking for signs of life." Those words ignited something within me. As I stood there, heart pounding and mind racing, I abandoned my lingering weaknesses. In that moment of incredible vulnerability, I felt the flicker of hope spark to life, but it was quickly overshadowed by a fresh wave of uncertainty. Just then, a man staggered from the crowd, his ear pressed to the car, and shouted, "There's one inside." I can hear her. Hope flickered, yet it brought with it an overwhelming swell of fear. The rancher motioned the man away, attempting to assess the situation. The reality of it all crashed down on me like a powerful wave. I was teetering on the edge of something monumental, the uncertainty looming heavy in the air, the darkness of what could happen flooding my senses. As I took a step forward, ready to help however I could, an unexpected voice surfaced from the crowd. "Stop!" It was sharp and imposing, drawing immediate attention away from the car and back to the diner. All eyes turned toward a woman who emerged from the shadows, her face shrouded in distress, her hands trembling. "You can't help her," she cried, her voice barely more than a whisper but filled with unmistakable urgency. "You have to listen to me. She's not who you think she is." The shock of her words sent a shiver racing down my spine, and just like that, hope twisted back into something far more foreboding. In the midst of chaos, I saw familiarity, to a darkness emerging that I had no choice but to confront. My heart ached at the thought of more secrets weighing down the very fabric of our lives, secrets that could unravel everything we held dear. With shaky breaths and a heart pounding in an erratic rhythm, I leaned against the cool metal of the diner, my focus fixated on the woman who had reacted to the unfolding tragedy with such raw emotion. The crowd was silent, a blanket of uncertainty draping over the scene, and I could feel it pressing against my chest, thick and suffocating. "What do you mean?" The rancher's voice was steady but edged with confusion. "What do you know about her?" His gaze moved between the woman and the wreckage, radiating a fierce protectiveness that sent ripples of courage through me, even amid the storm of anxiety that gripped my mind. Her eyes flickered with recognition, more profound than any stranger's gaze should hold. "You don't understand, we can't just pull her out. She's different. You have to trust me." "Different how?" I found my voice, desperation spilling out in waves. "What does that mean?" In that moment, I could barely breathe, my thoughts spiraling into an abyss of confusion and dread. The idea of someone injured, trapped and needing our help, colliding with this woman's cryptic warning, felt unbearably tense. "That I can't explain now. Just don't do anything until I can talk to you," she insisted, her trembling hands forming fists at her sides, each word punctuated by a flicker of panic. There was something so familiar in her fear, it echoed the very uncertainty that had bound me for so long. Inside me, the blood cooled. What if her words were true? What if the person inside was something beyond what any of us could fathom? The rancher inhaled sharply, taking a step forward, set on deciphering the chaos. "Listen, if she's in there, we have to help her. We don't have time for this." The tension thickened, and it felt like every heartbeat clashed against the pulse of the crowd gathered. Mothers held their children tighter, grown men exchanged anxious glances, each breath heavy with what-ifs. I searched for a flicker of clarity in the chaos, yet every direction pulled at my heartstrings, without resolution. Before I could speak again, another voice rang out, this one laced with authority and urgency. "Everyone needs to step back." A figure snapped from the emergency team that had just arrived. Dressed in bright orange, the paramedic rushed forward, the other first responders backing him tighter toward the scene. "No. We have to wait," the woman cried, tears cascading down her cheeks. "She needs to be kept away from the light. You don't understand what will happen." "What won't I understand?" I challenged, my instincts flaring. "Is it our fault she's trapped? We need to help her." But as the medics began to assess the car, I caught a glimpse of the rancher's face, shadowed beneath the weight of decision. His resolve flickered with concern, silently battling between intervention and caution. He locked eyes with me. There was an intensity there, a shared understanding of vulnerability that transcended the chaos around us. "Listen," he said, motioning toward the woman with a gentle insistence, "there's something more here." Her answer came like a breath caught in the throat. "You don't know what she's capable of, what she might unleash. Please, you have to trust me." The rancher hesitated, his thoughts evidently racing. It was genuine, ripping through the noise of the crowd, and before he could process it, I felt the chilling currents of doubt clamping down around me. What did she know, and how did it connect with my own fears? What unseen bond tied me to this unfolding nightmare? A low, agonizing whimper pulsed from the wreckage, sharp and full of pain, stealing away my breath. In a moment of introspection, I felt the agony of dashing dreams and hopes, a cascade of yearning trapped within. The fragile tapestry of my Lithia life, once filled with simple pleasures, now caught in the throes of a haunting realization. Look, my voice barely rose above the murmurs, yet somehow, it cut through the rising tension. "We have to try." My heart raced within the confines of my chest, something inside me urged me to breach this barrier to seek truth amid the turmoil. Suddenly, the air crackled, sharp as glass breaking, as the man released a collective breath. "No. It's too late." An unbearable crack sounded, and a fresh tension sliced through the crowd. I gasped at the sight. Half the car tipped, metal slipping like a bad dream, and the cries turned into panic, a stampede of fear erupting at the sight. Get back. Everyone back. The paramedic shouted, but the damage was done, and for me, the moment hung suspended. I turned sharply, my eyes flicking from the rancher to the hauntingly distressed woman. I don't want to be a part of this anymore, I exclaimed, fueled by the visceral fear clenching my stomach, but the truth was I had already stepped too deeply into the darkness. As chaos ensued, our eyes locked an aching bond that hinted at something greater between us. All the moments spent in the diner, the camaraderie, the shared unease that formed from our disparate lives had crescendoed into this very point. Amid the rising tide of panic, I caught a glimmer of calm intention behind eyes that had witnessed too much solitude. You're not alone anymore, he spoke softly, and it echoed through the tumult like an ancient truth. And then, just as quickly silence fell, that a deafening silence swallowed all sound. And then we heard it again, a voice, high and piercing. Mommy? Help me. The air thickened with dread as shouts erupted, but one thing trapped the core of my being. That voice felt eerily familiar, as if a shadow from my past had returned to haunt me. I grasped at reason and found only echoes of anguish, lest it tether me deeper into the unknown. And that breath held stillness. The world around us shifted, drawing tighter, leaving me unsure of what I would find in the remnants of our unraveling fates. The shrill cry cut through the faded hum of onlookers like a knife, and my heart lodged in my throat as I struggled to locate the source. Mommy? Help me. Each word thudded against my chest with weight I had never known, a hollow echo of my own childhood fears surfacing like unwelcome phantoms. And the chaos, fractions of a second bled together, time unraveling into distortion. I instinctively scanned the crowd, searching for the owner of that pained plea, but my eyes returned to the woman, her face pale and stricken, losing the battle against anguish. Who is that? I managed to murmur, the words feeling foreign on my tongue as they sliced through the pandemonium. It can't be. No, it can't. She shook her head, unraveling further, as if she feared the mere mention of the truth would incite untold horrors. The rancher's eyes darted toward the wreckage, tension in his brow deepening. Stay calm, he instructed gently, though I sensed he was grappling with the urge to lurch forward and confront the unknown. Calm. I echoed, the word tasting bitter and cruel. There's a girl in there. We can't just stand here. But even as I spoke, dread washed over me like a cold wave, leaving me breathless. Was it truly a girl's voice, or was my mind conjuring memories of my own past? Visions splintered in my mind, echoes of a long-lost sister I never got to know, the one who had slipped through the cracks of memory like the shadows of night. Keep your distance. The paramedic ordered, urgency tainting his tone. We're assessing the situation, but too many people crowding won't help. Help? The word escaped my lips with disbelief, stinging as it hit the air. This is help. The rancher touched my arm gently, grounding me for a moment. We need to let them work. It'll be okay. But his voice held a tremor, betraying the conviction he tried to uphold. And yet, that shriek, a familiar cry that dredged up so many unanswered questions, urged me to move. My instincts clashed with the heavy chains of reason binding my feet to the ground. I could feel the eyes of all those gathered bearing down on us, an unspoken judgment mingling with their anticipation and fear. Why, you know her? I stammered, my gaze locked onto the woman's grieving eyes as desperation clawed at my heart. You have to tell us. I wish I could. But it's complicated. It's not just about her, it's about everything we've done, about things we can't let loose. The tremor in her voice crescendoed into chaos, her body trembling from something far deeper than fear. Suddenly, with a fierce determination, she stepped forward, breaking away from the rancher's grasp. You have to listen to me. She pleaded, voice rising above the gathering storm of emotion. She could be the key, but the moment you expose her, it could all unravel. The rancher stepped up beside her. What do you mean, expose her? Explain yourself. We're running out of time. Before she could respond, something shifted among the medics, a moment of heightened tension vibrating through the air, as if the world held its breath. The paramedic raised his radio to his mouth, urgency woven with apprehension. We need stabilization equipment. Deploy the airbag system. Right now, the command ignited a flurry of activity among the responders, but I remained anchored in place, transfixed by the woman's desperate gaze that pleaded for understanding, for solidarity. "Please, you have to trust me," she said, her voice softening, inviting me into a terrifying alliance wrapped in the shadows of uncertainty. "If we act too quickly, we might unleash something that shouldn't see the light of day." My mind was racing as I processed her words. A girl trapped inside a car, but more than Theta being so powerful that our threat seemed inconsequential. The fear that had enveloped me, once all-consuming, now faded into a strange curiosity, coupled with a burgeoning sense of duty. With trembling lips, I nodded toward her, both to confirm I was listening and to bridge the divide of our fears. "If we wait, what happens to her?" "What happens to the girl?" Before she could answer, the metallic shriek of the car's frame morphed into an anguished groan, and I instinctively recoiled. "No." The rancher's voice ripped through my thoughts. Then, that voice again, "Mommy. I'm scared." Tremors of cold realization shot through me, igniting the embers of forgotten memories. It wasn't just a voice, it was one that felt achingly familiar, weaving itself into the fabric of my past. "That I need to get closer," I found myself saying, a fierce protectiveness igniting within me. Gone was the hesitance that had once clouded my resolve. "If she's calling for help, I can't let that fear linger alone." "Don't. You don't know what you're doing," the woman shouted, but my mind had shut off the surrounding noise. With each hurried step toward the wreckage, hope surged within me, a reckless, raw desire to save someone who may or may not be connected to my own fragmented memories. It was as if my heart had bypassed hesitation, racing toward the wounds that needed healing. "Wait," the rancher called, but I crossed a threshold, caught between two worlds. As I neared the wreckage, a chorus of voices erupted behind me in protest, but their words faded into oblivion while echoes of the past surged closer. As I reached the edge of the crowd, the world froze again, and I peered into the darkness of the wreckage. "Incoming!" I called out, both hopeful and terrified, feeling the breath of destiny whispering secrets I had long buried, and then, as if in answer to my plea, a glow flickered from within the car, illuminating the surroundings with an ethereal light that sliced through the chaos. In that moment, both fear and understanding drew nearer, my pulse racing faster than lightning as everything I thought I knew about life teetered on the brink. In the illumination, I caught a glimpse of a small figure, its expression serene and bright against the gruesome backdrop of twisted metal. And I froze, for in that moment, I recognized those haunting eyes I thought I had lost forever. "Mommy," she repeated, her voice cutting through the noise of the gathering storm, piercing through the veil of my past. Time hesitated upon that shining edge, and all at once, I sensed the world shifting beneath my feet, ready to unravel into chaos, exposing the secrets buried deep within my heart. I reached out, but fear whispered that some doors, once opened, would never be closed again, and with it came a realization that changed everything, for not only was she seeking help, she was also a beacon to a reckoning I could not escape. Amid the chaos, my breath caught in my throat, and I realized that with each passing moment, the fragile thread binding me to my past was unraveling, inching closer to a revelation that would alter the rhythm of my life forever. The air was thick with dread, swirling like smoke from the wreckage as I stood on the precipice of recognition, my heart pounding with wild abandon. The girl's eyes, so achingly familiar, held a depth that reverberated through the fabric of my memories. "Mommy," she called again, her voice trembling with innocence that rattled my soul. "Elena," I breathed, the name escaping my lips like a prayer, laced with disbelief. How could it be her? The sister I had long mourned, lost to the shadows of my childhood. The reality around me dulled, fading into a blur of faces and frantic movements, the world reducing to just her and me. "Stay back," a voice yelled, breaking through the haze. It was the rancher, his brow furrowed with concern as he sought to draw me away from the beckoning light. But I could not move. It felt as if my feet were sewn to the ground, anchoring me in place, tethered to an unrelenting pull toward the child I had yearned for all my life. "Elena," I shouted, desperation spilling into my voice. I could see her now, framed within the mangled metal, an ethereal figure surrounded by the chaos that threatened to devour her. Her small hands waved, reaching for me, and in that moment, I knew I would cross any barrier to breach the distance between us. Stop. You'll put yourself in danger. He shouted again, but I was past listening. A fierce instinct arose, a primal longing to protect, to embrace, to shield her from a world that had taken so much from us both. As I drew closer to the wreckage, the glow intensified, a soft halo around her warmth, illuminating the shadows wrought from years of pain. I could feel that familiar connection pulling at the seams of my heart. Help me. Elena's voice trembled, a melody steeped in childhood memories, lost games, shared secrets, promises of forever. It wrapped around me like a beloved song I had thought I had forgotten. I'm scared, Mommy, that I am here. I cried, tears blurring my vision. My hands were shaking, and as they brushed against the cool metal, a surge of energy pulsed through me raw and untamed. I glanced back at the rancher. His eyes flared with alarm, but they held a hint of understanding as well. Perhaps he too felt the gravity of the moment unfolding. Someone help her. I pleaded, my voice thin and fractured, as I turned my gaze back on Elena. We're going to get you out of there, I promise, but the chaos remained unfettered. The paramedics were shouting, their voices now a cacophony of urgency, but everything faded at the edges of my mind aside from that gleaming light emanating from my sister. Don't be afraid. I reassured her, though fear churned within me. Every second spent was another risk. The glimmer of hope mingled with darkness closing in on us. Suddenly, the rancher reached for my arm, gripping it tightly. You don't know what you're dealing with. If you free her too soon you could unleash something that can't be contained. We've been warned. What? I gasped, bewildered by his words. Warned? By who? What do you mean? She's just a child. My eyes darted back to the glowing figure, the truth hanging heavy in the air, a truth that felt both terrifying and inevitable. Listen to me. His voice was sharp, pulling me back from the brink of despair. There's more at play here, and it's not just about saving her. There are forces beyond our understanding that could be unleashed if we're not careful. The warmth of his concern thrust me back, and I dared to look closer into Elena's luminous eyes. For a moment, clarity threaded through the fog, revealing an understanding that cut deeper than all else. It wasn't only fear that haunted her, it was a power that shimmered beneath her fragile surface, a well of energy that could either heal or destroy. You're scared of her, I breathed, realization dawning. But she's my sister, and she deserves a chance. I'm not afraid of her, he insisted, his grip slackening, but of what she embodies. We've carried burdens from the past, things we thought were buried, but they're not. If we expose her, the consequences could be catastrophic. My heart twisted at his words. What other secrets had my family kept? Shadows lingered within my own history, truths locked away like ghosts waiting to reclaim their power. But as I looked into Elena's eyes, poised between fear and leadership, I could no longer distinguish between my love for her and the weight of the world threatening to crush us. Just as clarity beckoned, movement surged through the crowd, and I strained to hear beyond the tumult. Whispers of a woman rose above the din, punctuated by the urgency in her tone. We can't wait any longer. I'll do it, wait. The rancher shouted, panic threading through his voice. But it was too late. The woman sprang forward with resolve, drawing the attention of the medics, who seemed to stall in their frantic movements, eyes now darting toward the source of her sudden defiance. But confusion swirled within me alongside the chaos. Was she a friend or a foe? Don't you dare. I screamed, my heart racing as the distance between us threatened to warp time itself. Please, stop, and then, in that fragile moment brimming with potential calamity, the air crackled and shifted, panting with ill-harboring dreams. A sudden burst reverberated from Elena's shimmering presence, an unseen force eager to escape its confinement. No! I yelled as the ground trembled, the wreckage creaking in resonance with an awakening. Amid the chaos, new figures emerged from the edges of the crowd, faces familiar yet estranged, lurking figures that had haunted my past. The unexpected reunion spiraled my thoughts into disarray. Why are you here? I stammered, dread pooling in my stomach. The lines between love and fear blurred, each heartbeat echoing uncertainty, and just as I grasped the thread of the reality before me, the world erupted into a tempest of light, enveloping everything I had ever known in a fire so brilliant it threatened to consume the night. Just before the blinding glow washed over me completely, I registered her voice one final time, heartfelt and anguished. "Mommy, please don't leave me." The darkness embraced me, spiraling me into an abyss where hope teetered on the brink of despair, and I disappeared into the unknown, clutching tightly to the resonance of a love that had always bridged the chasms of our fractured existence. The void of light clung to me like a heavy shroud, wrapping me in the memories I had fought so hard to bury. The darkness roared around me, pulling me deeper into its grasp, and I gasped, struggling to find my breath within the suffocating absence. Was I falling? Or was I being consumed? Then, like the first rays of dawn streaking through a stormy sky, warmth bloomed inside me, a flicker of recognition, an echo of Elena's voice. Despite the chaos, despite the encroaching darkness, I felt her presence threading through my spirit, untangling the knot of fear that twisted in my chest. "Mommy, please don't leave me." The invocation of her innocence pulled me back, igniting a fierce determination within my veins. I would not vanish into the void, not when she needed me. With that thought, I surged against the currents of despair, fighting my way through the tumult. And then, just as quickly as it had consumed me, the darkness receded, melting away to reveal a soft illumination that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. I found myself on the ground, the cool earth pressing against my palms, breathless and disoriented. As my gaze lifted, I saw the collective faces around me, a sea of confusion and fear. They were moments away from action or inaction, oscillating between hope and dread. Yet it was the sight of her that stole the breath from my lungs. Elena stood there, silhouetted by the light, her eyes gleaming with the rawness I had known since childhood. "Elena," I rasped, the name trembling on my lips, but she wavered, floating above the ground for a heartbeat, caught in that delicate balance of power and vulnerability that the rancher had warned me about. My heart pounded against my ribcage like a frantic drum, the truth interweaving with my recognition. She was not merely a child anymore, she held something immeasurably vast within her, and it made my skin crawl and my heart soar. "Please don't be scared," I urged, my voice cracking with the weight of dread. "I won't let anything hurt you. Just come back to me." She hesitated, the gap stretching between us, shadowed by the looming figures that tread upon the periphery, shrouded in a moment of uncertainty. I could feel the rancher's eyes locked onto my back, crackling with tension, his presence a fierce reminder of the stakes at play. Whispers broke through the gathered crowd, rippling through the air. "The child, she's awakening something," someone murmured, eyes darting with unmasked fear. "This is not how it's supposed to happen." "What do you mean?" I called out, desperation seeping into my voice. "What's happening?" "No time." The rancher shouted, stepping toward me, his brow glistening with sweat. "We need to contain her. If this goes awry, it won't just be her danger, it will threaten us all." I looked at Elena, her luminous form shimmering in the twilight, and realized that the burden of her power extended far beyond our family. It stretched into the very fabric of reality, connections, histories, things forgotten and lost that could perhaps lead to salvation or ruin. "Elena," my voice broke into a painful whisper, "listen to me. You can control this. You always could." Her gaze locked onto mine, and I could see the flicker of recognition curled beneath the surface of fear. She began to sway, the light around her undulating, and I instinctively reached out toward her. "I believe in you," I cried, my heart urging her to find her strength within the chaos, but my words seemed to dissolve into the ether, lost amid the sinister whispers of the crowd. "Stop. We can't risk exposure." Another voice snarled, heavy with authority, as a figure stepped from the group. A woman, fierce and determined, her hair swept into a tight bun that spoke of discipline. My heart sank as she locked eyes with me. I recognized her from memories intertwined with anger and betrayal. "Miranda." I gasped, the name slipping out like a secret I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Yes, and I won't let you destroy everything we have worked for." Her eyes flashed with an intensity that promised conflict. "You've already put us all at risk just by being here." "Risk? What do you know about risk? You were never there." I spat, emotion spilling over the rim of my control. You abandoned us, Elena is a threat, and you're too emotionally compromised to see it. Miranda pressed forward, her tone edged with certainty. You think you can save her, but it's more complicated than that. It always has been. The night seemed to grow darker, shadows encroaching around us, and Elena's light flickered precariously in response to the rising tension. No. You don't understand. I cried, desperation flooding my voice. She needs us, but the rancher took a step toward Miranda, his features hardening like stone, and my heart raced with fear for what was to come. It's not just the girl, he warned. She's connected to everything that has been hidden. We're walking a dangerous line, and we have to tread carefully. Suddenly, a searing pulse of energy burst forth from Elena, briefly overloading the air, and I felt it rippling through the crowd with a palpable tension. The specter of fate hung in the air, sharp and raw, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, and in that moment, a moment of shared understanding and dread, I locked eyes with Elena straight into my soul. Mommy! She called again, but her voice held something darker, a plea layered with fear and uncertainty. Before I could respond, a deafening sound erupted, a clash of forces as the crowd began to surge, adrenaline-fueled panic washing over the scene, pulling each of us into its furious tide. I awoke fully to the realization that the battle for Elena's life and the choices of the past had come barreling toward us, ready to explode. And then, as chaos ensued around us, a shadow loomed at the edge of my vision, a figure I never expected, a part of my past I thought was long gone, stepping into the fray with a determination that rattled my very core. One breath, one heartbeat, and everything I thought I knew shattered like glass. People don't change, the voice coolly announced, each word dripping with a disdain that sent shivers down my spine. But it looks like your moment of reckoning has finally arrived. The air crackled with a sharp tension, and as the swirling chaos enveloped us, every heartbeat felt magnified, echoing my fear and yearning. I turned toward the newcomer, the familiar voice rippling through the torrent of emotion like a rogue wave crashing against a shoreline, unveiling layers of memories both sweet and bitter. Dylan. It escaped my lips in disbelief that turned swiftly into dread. I hadn't seen him in years entwined in pain and separation. But here he was, standing amongst the tumult, and suddenly the world felt less stable, foundations shifting beneath my feet. His presence cast a shadow, deepening the already darkening night. He stepped forward, eyes steely, locking onto mine as if he carried the weight of the storm at his back. The crowd that had pushed forward in a wave seemed to shrink back, sensing the undercurrents of history and animosity that crackled in the air between us. Why are you here? I demanded, the heat of anger flaring alongside the shock I felt at seeing him. This isn't your fight, not my fight. You think you can just unravel this mess without me? His tone was tinged with that familiar arrogance, but underneath lay a current of concern that I couldn't quite dismiss. You shouldn't have come here, not now, not when everything is hanging by a thread. Dylan, this is about Elena. I shouted, desperation pulsing through my veins, mingling with my anger. She needs us to protect her, and I won't let them take her. Protect her. He shook his head, his long hair catching the remnants of light as it fell across his brow like a tempest. You're playing with forces you don't fully understand, and putting her in even greater danger. You need to trust me. Trust. The very concept felt foreign, like a relic of another life that had shattered beyond repair. Yet, as I looked into his eyes, I saw a flame flickering, perhaps a desire to mend past wounds, maybe an impulse to shield me from the tempest we were slowly losing control over. But how could I trust him again when years of separation had carved vast canyons between us? Suddenly, Elena emitted another pulse of energy, the light around her flaring brightly as if responding to the growing tension. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. She looked between us, her small face contorting with confusion. Mommy? Who is he? Someone from my past, I murmured, acutely aware of how my answer seemed woefully inadequate. But right now, we need to focus on you. Time's running out. The rancher interjected, panic creeping into his voice as the shadows encroached, whispering dark promises of chaos. If we don't contain this, we're all done for. Contain what? I snapped, turning my wrath toward him. Everything felt suffocating, spiraling out of control. You can't just treat her like a weapon, like something to be contained. She's a child, but the rancher's gaze flicked again to Elena, his eyes wide with a kind of fear I had yet to witness. You don't understand. This isn't about her. It's about what she can awaken without understanding. If she fully manifests her power, it could destabilize everything, and countless lives would be disrupted. Listen to me, both of you. Dylan came forward, urgency threading his words. We can work together. We need to reach her before it escalates. He took a breath, centering himself, and for a fleeting moment, the old spark of connection surged between us, mingling with the urgency of our surroundings. In that chaotic moment, I heard Elena's sweet, wavering voice, "Mommy, I'm scared." The conviction in her plea struck me hard, my heart twisting painfully in my chest as I saw the fear in her wide, innocent eyes. It was a reminder of my own childish fears, the very demons I thought I had outgrown. Hold on to me, I urged her, my burden as a mother colliding fiercely with the notion that not just my child's life but the very fabric of our reality hung in the balance. We're going to get through this. Before I could take another step, a sudden surge of heat emanated from Elena, radiating like sunlight breaking through dark rain clouds. The crowd recoiled as the force swung across us, the light igniting the air and cracking against everything stifling around us. For a moment, we were suspended in hope, light, and potential. But as quickly as it bloomed, doubt stained the hope. "Mommy." Elena's voice crackled, equal parts frightened and fierce, drawing me back into the reality of the situation. That we need to act now. Miranda's voice sliced through the light, crystalline and sharp, as she lowered her frame into a strategic stance among the crowd. And if anyone here is lost in nostalgia, they had best find their focus. If any of us is to make it through this. Another pulse from Elena, infused with uncertainty, and I caught her gaze, vulnerable yet somehow still defiant. I willed myself to find solid ground, walking the thin line between my daughter's burgeoning power and the boundary that could tear everything apart. But that line faltered, shattered by a sudden roar as a dark silhouette loomed ever closer, the shadows flickering with menace concealed amidst the swirling crowd. "Dylan, get her out of here!" I shouted, the urgency clawing at my throat as dread pooled within me. I needed a way out, a path to safety for Elena, but just as quickly came the horrifying realization that surrounding us was a tempest growing stronger. Then, amidst the rising chaos, the unthinkable happened. Elena raised her hands as if reaching for something, and her eyes shimmered with a rekindled light that cast away the shadows constraining her spirit. "You can't take me." Her voice was steady now, fierce, echoing through the night like thunder. "You don't own me," and as those fierce words rang out, the ground trembled beneath our feet, each soul caught in the whirlwind of her power. The very fabric I had feared would unravel was tethered here now, binding us all to this singular moment. I felt my heart seize, caught between fear and fierce pride, unsure whether I should rejoice or weep. "Stay close to me," I called desperately, rooted to the earth as the swirling light pulsed brighter with each assertion of her will. But uncertainty loomed alongside our flickering hope, and I couldn't help but wonder, had she truly awakened something that could shield her, or was it the very force that would tear us apart? As the energy began to intensify, a scream erupted in the background, drowning everything in its wake, unraveling the quivering threads of our cautious optimism. The chaos was here, and there was no turning back now. As the echoes of Elena's defiance reverberated in the air, I found myself trapped in a paradox, torn between sheltering her and facing the unknown chaos that loomed ahead. The ground shook in a violent response to both her awakening and the encroaching shadows. What we had feared was no longer a distant possibility, it was upon us, clawing to pull us into its dark embrace. Dylan's voice cut through the commotion like a knife. "We need to redirect her energy. Focus it away from the crowd." He took a step toward Elena as if trying to shield her from the cataclysm brewing within and without. "Don't get too close," I shouted, but the words felt feeble against the raging tempest surrounding us. In that moment, every ounce of my instinct screamed to protect my daughter, yet I had no idea how to harness the raw power so vividly emanating from her. "Listen to me, sweet girl," Dylan's voice softened. "I know you can control this. Remember what you told me about your light. It's in you, and no one can take it away." Elena paused, her tiny hands trembling as she wrestled with the torrent of emotions swirling inside of her. Through her fear, I sensed a glimmer of hope, a budding awareness. Still, the fear gnawed at me, unease tightening my chest as shadows crept ever closer. Stay together. Miranda's authoritative voice rang out as she repositioned herself behind a cluster of brave onlookers willing to fend off the oncoming storm. The glint of determination in her eyes ignited a small flame of solidarity in the midst of the chaos. Even if I could feel the ground slipping from under our feet, suddenly, I felt a sharp pull in my heart, like a string fraying under too much tension. Just ahead, a figure stumbled through the crowd, battered and bruised, a reflection of someone caught up in this battle against fate. As they drew closer, a spark of recognition ignited. It was Marco, the rancher who had taken me in during one of my darkest years. He had always been a beacon in turbulent waters, an unexpected source of light when I had felt utterly lost. Help her. He gasped, his voice laced with urgency, yet overwhelming concern for his own well-being. Please, don't let them take her. They're coming for her. My heart sank at the desperation lacing his plea. Nearly forgotten memories flooded back, the kindness he had shown me when I was at my lowest, when he had offered me bread without expecting anything in return. Once, he had been a lifeline. Now, he stood before me as a reminder of how treacherous this path had become. Marco, what do you know? I forced the words out, desperate for clarity amidst the uncertainty. They've always been afraid of her, he panted, glancing toward the shadows as if they could reach out and snatch him away. She's a child of the old ways, something the adults in this world barely comprehend. They think if they abandon the past, her kind will cease to exist. A chill swept through me at the thought, the implications settling heavy on my heart. The adults? I repeated, processing his words like gravel in my throat. The crowd surrounding us, filled with their own children and fears, suddenly felt like a tenuous alliance balancing on the edge of discontent. Are they not trying to save Elena? Why do they fear her so? Fear breeds more fear, Marco replied, pain etched into the lines of his face. They think if she awakens fully, she will become a threat to their authority, to their control. But without her, they only surrender the future. As if responding to the weight of his words, Elena's energy surged once again, a blinding light radiating from her small figure. The crowd gasped, some stepping back, others leaning forward in a delicate dance of anticipation and fear. Mommy! She cried, her voice trembling but fierce, echoing with the strength of truth. I'm not a weapon. The significance of her declaration seeped into the very fabric of the gathering, eliciting heartbeats that mirrored my own. In that fleeting moment, I felt a raw connection binding us all together, the fear, the courage, the desire to see another day. But then, the shadows shifted, morphing into something more tangible, more threatening. A growl of malice emanated from the depths of the fog that surrounded us. It was like a sinister whisper calling out, claiming the darkness as its own. The crowd shrank back as a figure emerged, tall and shrouded in shadow, eyes gleaming with malevolence. I see you've gathered quite a little family here, the figure hissed, voice smooth as treacle yet dripping with venom. But there's only room for one at the helm, sweet child. Surrender your light before it engulfs you. Tension coiled in the air, endless and suffocating, as I instinctively stepped in front of Elena, shielding her from the darkness now wavering at the edge of our temporary sanctuary. What do you want from her? My voice shook, yet inside, a fire ignited. I wouldn't let fear dictate our fate. A chilling smile twisted upon the figure's face, one filled with a twisted blend of pity and predation. She's more than just a child, they replied softly. She is a beacon, yes, but this world thrives on shadows. Join us, and we can protect her. Alone, we will strip this light from her until nothing remains. It was the moment of truth, the crossroads where every decision mattered, where one step could plunge us into unfathomable darkness. Around me, I felt the hesitation of the crowd, their hopes hanging by a fragile thread. Would I risk everything to save my daughter? To stand against a tide of fear and doubt, or would I succumb to desperation and lose not just her, but everything I had fought for? With hearts pounding, the crowd began to murmur, uncertainty bubbling beneath the surface. I met Dylan's gaze, silent pleas passing between us as the shadows continued to creep, tightening their grip on our fragile sanctuary. Time was slipping away, and whether through compassion or resignation, the choice ahead would mark our future forever, Mommy Elena whispered, her voice trembling, pulling me back from the precipice of despair that I had to act. But as I opened my mouth to respond, the world dimmed, shadows descending upon us with a vengeance, the moment hung in the air, suspended between hope and despair, and suddenly we were left with one eternal question: what, exactly, would we sacrifice to save her? The shadows crackled with energy, whipping around us like the arms of a monstrous creature. My heart raced as I braced against the darkness, my body instinctively forming a barrier around Elena. "We stand together!" I shouted, projecting my voice against the rising tide of fear pooling amongst the crowd. Elena's small frame pressed close to me. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she cried, her words punctuated by a surge of shimmering light that burst from her fingertips, illuminating the encroaching shadows momentarily. It flickered, a beacon of defiance in the face of impending doom. "Then don't," I responded, forcing my determination into a raw thread of hope. "Focus on that light. Find it, Elena. It's in you." Each word felt heavy with the weight of our destinies, yet I held on to the belief that surrender was not an option. "Love it," Miranda whispered, her voice barely rising above the haunting atmosphere. She moved closer, her eyes radiating the steely resolve of a protector. "It's all about love, sweet girl. Let it guide you." From the corner of my eye, I noticed Marco stagger back into the crowd, his face a storm of conflicting emotions: fear, despair, and a glimmer of unwavering trust. "We've faced worse together, haven't we?" he murmured, and my heart ached at the memory of his kindness. The warmth of admiration for him offered a breath of strength amid the swirling dread. "Join us." Dylan's voice rang out, encouraging others to take a stand. "She's not a monster. She's a child." With his call, a wave of courage began to ripple through the crowd, tethering each individual heartbeat to the fragile hope we held close, but the dark figure, shrouded in shadows, sneered at our meager resistance. "You foolish mortals. This light will only bring your end," they taunted, their voice curling like smoke. "Your love is a poison that will consume you. No. I roared, my voice echoing back at me, emboldened by the force of our shared defiance. "You only want to silence her because you fear what you can't control." I could feel the air thickening, the shadows writhed, feeding on my uncertainty. Elena's voice broke through, pure and clear: "I'm not afraid." It rang out like a chime of clarity, vibrant and unyielding. A flicker of light punctuated her tiny frame, a radiance that seemed to challenge the creeping darkness. Tears welled in my eyes at her resolve. "That's it, baby. Keep holding on to that light." I gave her a gentle shove toward the crowd center, where the flickers of hope blended together, growing brighter. Miranda held out her hands, palms up in a silent request for unity. One by one, others stepped forward, forming a circle around Elena, their arms outstretched, faces alight with encouragement. "We trust you," Marco shouted, a heartfelt battle cry erupting from his lips, rallying those initially caught in fear. As the dark figure hissed and writhed, losing some of their poise, I saw that our network of love was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Faces I had never seen before, clasped hands of strangers turned allies, stood there, ready to fight against the shadows, demonstrating that even in the most daunting situations, humanity's goodness could shine through. Then, with a brilliant flash, Elena summoned her energy, weaving it along the hands of those around her. Like sprawling roots of a resilient tree, it connected each person, feeding off the warmth of their spirits. The glow intensified, a burning luminescence that illuminated the dark corners that threatened to engulf us. "Together," she cried, and my heart soared. "We won't let you take our light," but that very conviction ignited rage within the dark figure, whose expression twisted into a mask of fury. "This is not over, child. The shadows will rise again. You think you can fend us off forever? Your bond will be your downfall." Before I could even process those ominous words, a deafening rumble echoed through the ground beneath us, shattering our newfound hope. The earth heaved, sending tremors through our circle, and in that moment of chaos, understanding dawned upon me. The very fabric of our united front was under Attack! The figure loomed closer, drawing upon the chaos I feared would tear us apart. I could feel the chill invade our once warm sanctuary. It was then that I caught movement from the periphery. The crowd began to crumble, people backing away from the growing dread, eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. No! I shouted again, but the words felt like stones swallowing me whole. The ripples of fear infected the crowd, silently persuading them to choose their survival over unity. A gasp erupted from Marco as someone staggered back into him, knocking him off balance, and eyes were filled with panic. My heart twisted at the sight, urgency surging within me. I could see hope slipping through our fingers like grains of sand, spiraling into oblivion. Stay! I cried out, grasping for the wind of change. We have to hold on. But as the shadows closed in and people faltered, Elena's light dimmed ever so slightly, flickering under the pressure of the encroaching despair. I rushed towards her, reaching out to steady the remnants of that shining flame. It was not just her strength that was being threatened, it was our very essence. As I drew nearer, she looked up with pleading eyes, an old sorrow reflected in her gaze. Mommy, what if it's too late? The world seemed to tilt, a heartbeat's worth of time stretching into eternity. In that fragile moment, beneath the weight of existence, I realized the depth of our fight and the sacrifices we still might have to face. Before I could answer, shadows from the figure reached out, summoned by their darkness, coiling around my daughter and meth waves of fear crashing against us, threatening to drown all hope. And in that chilling moment of impending doom, a new truth echoed from the depths, burning mercilessly in my gut. Perhaps the greatest sacrifice was never mine to make, but hers. The moment hung in a delicate balance, my heart pounding against the encroaching darkness, a metronome of hope descending into despair. I could feel the energy surrounding Elena waver, her small form flickering with uncertainty. The shadows whispered promises of fear, curling around her as if they could infect her light with their venomous intent. Mommy, I'm scared. Elena's voice cut through the chaos, raw and vulnerable. It sent shivers down my spine and deep into the core of my soul. In that heartbeat, I felt the weight of the world pressing down, the wind of memories crashing against the walls I had built to protect my heart. And suddenly, the echoes of my past whispered back to me, words unspoken, pain long buried, reminding me of everything I had fought for. Stay with me, Elena, I urged, voice breaking as I closed the distance between us, anchoring my footfalls against the trembling ground. We'll figure this out together. You're not just a child, you are so much more. You have a light within you, and it belongs to you. Yet the shadows writhed closer, reaching for her, threatening to pull her under. I could feel the pulse of fear coursing through me. If my daughter's light wasn't enough to combat the darkness, what if she was destined to be lost like the rest? Elena stared deep into my eyes, searching for strength, for belief, and somewhere a flicker of resilience ignited in that warmth. Mommy, I don't want to hurt anyone, she murmured, determination coiling through her small frame like a protective vine. I know, sweet girl. But love is powerful, even in darkness. In that moment of connection, an unbreakable bond forged between the two of us. I felt clarity surge forth. As my own fears morphed into tangible strength, a wave of understanding washed over me. We could not resist if we were divided. Fear was an illusion that chained us to the past, but love would guide us into the future. The figure loomed closer, shadows stretching like hungry fingers, yearning to consume what they feared the most, our love, our bond. I took a step forward, planting my feet firmly beside Elena. You're not just light, you're a connection to all of us. Together, we can face this. I curled my fingers around hers, an unwavering promise pulsing between us. Feel it, Elena. Let your heart lift us up. I could see the fire rekindle in her eyes, the glow responding to my conviction, and I sensed the energy growing, an electrifying current flowing into the air around us. As I drew strength from her light, something within me shifted. The fear that had threatened to engulf me began to dissipate, and for the first time, I sensed that we were not just standing against an eternal darkness, but together, we were about to create a dawn. At that moment, the dark figure hissed, seething with rage as realization flickered across their twisted features. do you think your bond can stop the inevitable? A child of shadows will always succumb to the darkness and chaos. No. Elena shouted, her voice fierce, resonating with a power I had never before witnessed. The ground trembled, and with a deafening roar, the threads of light intertwined through the air, forming a vibrant tapestry of colors that burst forth from our connection. Together. I echoed. Together, we are unstoppable. And as if the universe had suddenly aligned, our forces burst for the radiant explosion of love, binding the darkness and wrapping it in a cloak of brilliance. The shadows writhed and clashed against the light, but with every pulse, the connection grew stronger, pushing back the void surrounding us. The dark figure faltered, the malevolence they had drawn upon crackling in the air. Their form twisted and shimmered, beginning to disintegrate amidst the brilliance we had summoned. Each heartbeat of light forged our spirits into an unyielding weapon of hope as the air sang with promises of liberation. Mommy! We're winning! Elena shouted, her joy echoing through the night like a beautiful melody. I could barely contain the tears that streamed down my face, joyous laughter rising within me like a symphony. Finally birthed into reality. Yes. Yes, my love. Keep going. Together we lifted our hands even higher, inviting countless hands to join in, connecting us all, Marco, Dylan, Miranda, and every soul brave enough to believe in the power of love. Just as the last vestiges of the dark presence began to dissolve, an all-consuming silence enveloped us, a poignant breath held in anticipation. My heart raced as I turned to face Elena, the golden light illuminating her small figure. The air crackled, and within that moment of deep stillness, I saw her for what she truly was, a vessel of light and potential. The darkness shattered, spiraling away until all that remained was the warm glow of a dawning new day surrounding us. The realization struck me like a soft caress. The struggle against the shadows had not just revealed my daughter's power but had illuminated every buried piece of my own heart. You are loved, Elena, I whispered, stepping closer to her, enveloping my arms around her, breathing in that sweet warmth that had guided us through the storm. And no darkness will ever change that. As the last remnants of shadows faded into the horizon, I felt a deep sense of closure wash over me. The secrets and burdens of my past had finally unraveled, setting me and my family free. Though trials lay ahead, I embraced the realization that we could rise again, together building a world woven from the light of our sincere love. In the stillness that enveloped us, amidst the whispers of a new dawn, the final thought echoed in my heart, settling there like a sacred promise, and always, we would choose each other, for that was the true magic all along.